Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here. We are live here, Totem Pole Nation. It is truly an honor. We are super blessed here. I've got the Coach Hines coming live from California. Coach, how are we doing today, sir?
I am blessed and humbled to be on. When you guys had first reached out to me, I've been blessed over the past few years to be able to be on a good number of podcasts. And sometimes it's someone that has on their first guest, or they've got a bunch of, we're all important people, but I looked at the list of coaches that you guys have had and are going to have, and I'm not including myself in this. And I'm like, man, they have the wrong guy. I'm humbled to be here. So life is good. I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Without a doubt, you are such an inspiring guy. I've been following you for so many years, and you don't hide from anything, man. You're a stand-up guy. You'll say what you believe in. And the thing that really drew me to you was when the one player you had, he had quit your team.
Yeah.
And if you and you basically said good. And could you explain kind of the background on that? Because that, I think, it was a life-changing moment, and it was probably one of the best things that ever happened to the kid.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up, and it's one of those not podcasts. It's one of those moments in my coaching career, actually in my life. I feel like I could talk for hours on, so stop me when I'm going too long. But the young man and his brother both played for me here at Coronado High School, and his brother showed up. He was one of the kids that was just a natural athlete. His brother, very gifted, hard worker also. And he showed up early, stayed late, and everything. And the young man you're talking about, if he was on time, that was a rarity. He was almost always a minute or two late, had to leave early for different reasons. So for the year and a half that I coached him, great young man, was never a discipline problem, but I never saw joy in his eyes. I never saw that, hey, we're here to have fun, And I think sometimes as coaches, even with the best of intentions, we lose sight of the fact that it's a game. And I can get on a soapbox. I won't, but I hate when people say, "Oh, it's just a game." No, I've seen too many lives transformed, too many lives saved to say just a game. But it is a game. So I give the same speech more or less at the beginning of every football season, saying, "Listen, this is not for everyone. I have a biased opinion, but if you decide it's not for you, don't let me find out from your buddies. Show up with your equipment washed, your jersey, your practice pants, everything washed, folded in your bag. Look me in the eye. Tell me the real reason. I'll shake your hand. I'll always be there for you." So this happened a few years back, and he came up to my office just before practice. And I won't say the young man's name, but he had his stuff. So I knew where this was going. And I said, "Hey, sit down for a second." And he goes, "Don't you have to go to practice?" I said, I'm not worried about that. I said, "That's why I have assistant coaches. I'll be out there. Don't worry about it." So we spoke for a few, maybe 10 minutes or so. And he goes, "Coach, we're just," and you could see like the fear in his eyes. He said, "We've always been a football family." I said, "Let's talk about that. What do you mean you've been a football family?" He's like, "Well, my brother loves football. You know that. And my dad loves football. My mom loves football." And he paused.
Wow.
I said, "Are you a football family, or are you a member of a football family?" And he goes,
Right.
"Yeah, I don't really like the sport, coach." And I looked at him, I said, "I'm proud of you." And then I saw his whole countenance change. He went from just stressed to just, you saw his shoulders relax. You saw not a smile yet, but, and I proceeded to say to him, I was like, "Listen, it's not for everyone. It takes courage to admit what you're passionate about, to follow your dream, to not do what mom or dad want." And mom and dad are great people, and I think there was a little bit of a push towards football, but it wasn't for him. So I told him, I said, "Listen, I love you. I'm proud of you. What are you passionate about?" And he looked at me and said, "I don't know." I said, "Well, that's the one homework assignment I'm going to give you. Find out what motivates you. Find out what makes you smile, brings you joy." And I got up, walked around my table in my coach's office, gave him a big hug, and I said, "I love you. I'm proud of you." And he just said, he looked at me, and he had legit, not tears coming down, but you could see like the tears like were forming in his eyes. He goes, and he didn't say, he goes, "Thank you, coach." I said, "Hey, that's all right." I said, "I love you. I'm proud of you." Walked out.
Wow.
As he was walking, I said, "Do you mind if I share this?" He goes, "No, please." So I did a quick little video, posted it, ran down to practice. I wasn't late. I was still a minute earlier. Called the whole team in. I said, "Listen, some of you may have known, but so-and-so," because some kids saw him walking to my office, stepped away from football. I said, "That's what a real young man does." He didn't make excuses. He did it with character. I always say, the biggest cop-out for me is when people say, "Oh, I want to focus on my grades." I'm like, "Listen, no one goes home at 3:30 and does homework till 9:30. I always did better academically in high school and college during the football season because I had less time to fool around, less time to screw up. And my message to the team was, A, he did it the right way. B, I dang well better not find out any of you are not treating him as a teammate. Still sit with him at lunch, still talk to him, still hang out with him. He's the same brother we had in the football team that is just choosing to bravely follow his passion now, whatever that may be. And I've kept in touch with him over the years and still reach out to him. And he does say, I love you now. It's just not a word that was thrown around a lot in that house openly. Right. And it's funny about the post because I hate to admit this, but being very honest, when I first got on Twitter and I started doing videos, and I hate that I'm admitting this, but I would think, how many likes will this get? How many retweets will this get? I've matured to the point where I don't care now. If it affects one person, if it blesses one player, coach, or parent, then God put it there in my heart for a reason. He said I could share it. I got in my truck after practice, and it had gone viral. The interesting thing is, though, there were a lot of people who must have read the caption and didn't watch the video that attacked me on that front. Like, hey,
yeah,
you're one of those arrogant coaches. That's what's wrong with sports. You're happy you quit. Like, I'll never get into a Twitter battle with someone online or whatever. But I just reply nicely. Please watch the video. And then there were people who watched the video like, hey, congratulations, you idiot. You taught him quitting's okay. and I took all of it in stride. But my message was, listen, I dated a lot of young women before I met my wife. I didn't quit on them or the relationship. They just weren't the right one for me, and I wasn't the right one for them. I've had a lot of jobs over the years that I didn't quit. I ended the job the right way, whether I gave a 2 weeks notice or ended the contract, but it wasn't the job for me. So I think what we need to teach our youth and practice ourselves is, your mom and dad had their chance to live their lives. It's your chance to live your life. Even if it upsets a few people, if it truly brings you joy and passion and it's not hurting someone else, follow that. Not everyone's cut out to be a doctor, or I'm certainly not a doctor, a lawyer, whatever it is. And follow your passion. So that's the short of the long story of that.
Oh, that's so awesome. That's the thing, man. Sometimes the kids, they're so inspired by us as coaches, but yet sometimes they're just so afraid to talk to us like we're not humans and we haven't gone through, different things and stuff like that. And, I was one where I had I moved to Florida, and I'd been here for a while, and I was living out in Plant City. And I went to Plant City High School, and I went to the coach, and I was like, "Look, I just kind of want to help out, assist you guys, and just, I didn't want to get paid or anything, just volunteer, something I just wanted to volunteer my time with." And it was working out for a good while. I felt like I was getting a good bond with the players and everything. I don't know what it was. Maybe it was the head OL coach or the head coach. But they kind of fired me, as a volunteer. And man, it did, man. It was something that really stuck with me. And I was just like, man, I'm never doing this again. And this is a story you and maybe a handful of people know this, Coach. But, after that, I ended up moving down to St. Petersburg. And, the closest school I was at, I just called. I called up there. And, I spoke to the coach, and I said, hey, I just want to volunteer. What do you think? And it was Coach Corey Moore of the Lakewood Spartans, powerhouse here in St. Pete. And he answered, he talked to me, and he said, well, I'm actually doing some internship right now with the Jacksonville Jaguars. But, come on up here. We could always use another set of eyes. And, that's exactly what I did. I showed up. And the first thing I noticed, man, is everybody was in all white T-shirts, black shorts. Everybody looked the exact same and everything. And I mean, I couldn't believe it, man. There were some specimens in this gym, man. It was unbelievable. And then, just sitting there talking to people, there were no guys from Virginia that looked like me in there, if you know what I mean. But it was great. For me, it was a challenge. He gave me an opportunity that another coach, how do you get fired from being a volunteer? Right. But so I went in there, started working out with the guys, and linked up with the other OL coach. And so I was pretty much like his sidekick, his assistant, but I was another guy that was just highly motivated. And I went in there, we had a great time, and man, we really saw the guys progress. And me being a Virginia guy, man, I love I kind of grew up loving the Virginia Tech Hokies, man. They just kind of had that, workman like lunch pail mentality. And, I went to the coaches. I said, Coach, would y'all be all right if I did kind of like, a lunch pail deal here, but just for the offensive linemen, just to, change it up, give these guys something to look forward to. And they were like, Coach K, man, do your thing. You've been working with the boys, do your thing. And, at the time I was doing good for myself. So what I did was I had this old school lunch box, the old school ones that, your pops or your grandpas used to probably, take to work, them ones that you could run over with a car tire and it'd still be okay.
Yes, sir.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Right. And so I got one of those. And what I did is, I knew some of the guys didn't have certain things, you know what I mean? It was an inner city school here in St. Pete. And, so I put like some lineman gloves in there for a couple guys. Nice. And I know one guy, my center, Anthony Hugabook, I had a Ray Lewis jersey. And this is when, Baltimore, this is 2012, 2013 season. And Baltimore was loaded then, man. And everybody wanted a Ray Lewis jersey. And, man, he opened that lunch pail up. And the look on his eye was like you just had like exactly what you said with your player. It was tearing up, but it was the best tears in the world, man. That's those happy tears, those happy tears. And, from that team, from the 4-year period I was there, we ended up putting 5 guys went to the National Football League. I believe there's 3 in there currently. One is Marquez Valdez-Scantling, just won a Super Bowl. Yeah. Isaiah Wynn, offensive lineman for the Patriots. And let me see here. We have Shaquille Griffin. You remember the twins that went to Central Florida and the one was missing the hand?
Yeah. Yep.
Both of those 2 guys went there. We had another kid named Rodney Adams that went to for the Bears for a little bit. But all those guys went there. I also got a guy currently that does mixed martial arts, my man, the cyborg A.D. Paulmore. And, it's just something that I would have never been a part of if I would have let, what happened at Plant City, kind of decide, my fate for me. And so,
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I just want to say, that's, that's something I thought that was pretty cool that, we did, man. When I was in high school, we had a Reverend Davis. Our quarterback's name was Gabe Davis, and his dad was a Reverend, and he came in, and man, the one thing he used to feed to us is, he would just preach the good word. And at the end, he would just be never give up, Amen. And he kept saying it until it was a mantra and everybody was yelling and yelling it. And it was just one of those things where, you go through tough times and tough situations and stuff like that. But I think, you kind of hear a voice, and for me, it's one of my coaches, it's one of his voice. You know what I mean? Like, I think, man, what would, for me, my coach was Coach Bland. I was like, well, what would Coach Bland do, in this tough situation? And I just know Coach Hines, that there's probably a ton of guys that probably say the same thing. And I've watched so many of your videos that, one day, man, I'm going to be sitting there talking to the good Lord. And if his voice don't sound something similar to yours, my man, I might be a little upset. You know what I mean?
We're both in trouble.
Yeah, man, you do, man. You got a very impactful, message. And, that's all I try to do is spread love. And you're a big dude. You're the type of guy, man. If I was thinking about making a mistake or doing something stupid, I'm gonna be like, man, I'm gonna wait for this guy to get past me to get down, wait for him to clear the alley before I do something like that. And, I think when guys that kind of look like us can, show that love and stuff like that, it just goes to show, it's what's on the inside, not always what it looks like, on the outside, Coach. Yeah.
It's funny because I appreciate the kind words there, but 2 things you said really resonate in me. And one was, what happened to you at the first school and where that brought you. I'm a firm believer that, there are 2 types of people in the world. people who believe things happen to them, and people
Yeah.
who know things happen for them. And when you take that perspective, my faith means everything to me. But I think even people that don't believe in God, if you look at life as happening to you or for you, it erases any victim mentality. It allows you to say there's a reason this is happening now, whether it's a storm, whether you're on top of the mountain or in the valley, whatever it is, and you can just approach it in a completely different way. And as far as, like you said, what a blessing it is to see people thrive, whether it's continuing their athletic career or in the business world, or like the young man who chose to step away. That's what it's about. Servant leadership, to say, listen, I'm blessed with this platform. You and I and countless others are blessed with a platform of coaching. Yes, to win games, but man, to win hearts and to change people's lives. And that's how many people do we know that either, like yourself, worked up to a certain level of success that the world sees, that you put yourself in that situation through blessings, but hard work. You achieve success, but how many people do we know, as an elementary school teacher and a high school football coach, 95% of my family and friends make more money than me. But
Yeah.
I still believe I'm one of the wealthiest people I know because I love my jobs. I get to make a difference. If I don't get ahead of myself, if I don't forget my why, I have the opportunity to make a difference, an impactful difference every single day. And that's just a dream. It's a blessing.
Without a doubt, coach, man, you're doing it. You're doing it real big. And, that's the great thing. We do have this platform. They didn't have it back when, I was in school in the 90s and stuff like that. You didn't have this kind of an impact. I mean, you can literally go on here and watch, videos of stuff and learn so much. But, in the same, there's so many things that can distract you and keep you avoiding, the stuff. And, I'm a big kind of a routine guy. Like I kind of set up, I set my mornings up where, I do a lot of healthy things and, a lot of things that are just kind of out of the box thinking. Like I usually start my day with some apple cider vinegar. It tastes terrible. Then I drink this other green tea, which that's not very good either. But all the stuff that's in it is really good.
Yeah.
And then I'll power through, probably a half a pot of coffee and everything. I'll take a cold shower because that'll really, wake you up and get you alert. And then I like to work out because, after that, man, I feel like I just got so much momentum rolling, and these things for me, they're all like non-negotiable. It's like you ain't gonna leave the house till you brush your teeth type deal. Like these are things that I've done, and I do a morning podcast every morning. It's Life Lessons with Coach K.
Love it.
And basically we're just talking about I'll pick random stuff. Today it was legends. That's what we were talking about, and you're fitting right in there, man. You're a legend in that area and a legend worldwide, man. And I couldn't be more blessed having you on. We had Coach McNally on last night. One of the greatest offensive line coaches of all time. And so this thing it's such a blessing. But so many people, they want to do the right thing, and if they don't see progression right away, if they don't see stuff happening for them instantly, so many times they'll quit and they'll give up on it. And, my kind of mentality on that a lot of times is like, if you're shipping something to another country, or you're getting something from another country, you're going to get it, but it's in the mail. It's kind of on the way. You know what I mean? What's your kind of mindset on that? Because, I know we're just in a lifetime now where people want to, get 6-minute abs, 5-minute abs, the quick to get right away.
Yeah. Speaking of abs, I'm on the 55-year ab plan. I'm 51 right now. I'm just being patient with myself. No, I think, my mindset when it comes to discipline and when it comes to mentality in life is, and I think we have, I won't say a curse, but I think we have a blessing as coaches and teachers and the responsibility to practice what we preach. How many times do we say to our athletes in the weight room, trust the process, trust me, you keep coming in, it may not be this month, it may not be 3 months, but someday you're going to wake up and then you'll see the fruits of your labor. If you have a young man that wants to gain weight, that's a hard gainer, you're like, listen, what are you eating? And you start breaking down what he isn't really eating, how he's not feeling inspired. Like, listen, just trust me here, trust me. And then you see the progress. As coaches, we've got to practice what we preach. I love working out. I also love eating. I love eating. So I've got to find that balance. I've got to make sure that I'm pushing myself hard in the weight room to lead by example, but also being smart in the kitchen. And as far as my diet and exercise and all that, I've got to practice what I preach as far as doing it on the days I don't feel like it and making things happen. And like you, when I go to bed at night, my wife and I, for 28 years now, we've been married. We pray together every morning. We pray together every night. And then I go through a list of, for myself personally, what my goals are for the next day. I want to walk 7 miles, or I want to work out, and accomplish certain lifts, or I want to make sure I eat right. Whatever it is, I have that. So when I wake up in the morning, I wake up at 5:30. I was a bad abuser of the snooze button for years. Moved out here to California. I was like, I'm not doing it. I'm not pressing the snooze once again. And I don't. Alarm goes off at 5:30. I'm up and I'm ready to go. And people, will often say to me, "Oh, I'm not a morning person." I'm like, I'm not either. But it's a conscious decision I make to get up early enough, to get to work early enough so I can leave and get to practice and be successful throughout my day. Just like you probably haven't, I'm guessing there haven't been many times, if any, that you've been in the middle of that cold shower and just going, "Oh, this is great." But as soon as you turn it off and put that warm towel on, you're like, "Oh, this is great." It's this, and I know I'm preaching to the choir. It's that, hey, can we do what we ask our players to do? Can we embrace the suck? Can we put ourselves in uncomfortable situations to live a life that others want to live but aren't willing to put the work in to make happen?
Without a doubt, without a doubt. I'm right there with you on that. I mean, yeah, I do. I think when you can, not hit the panic button, when things are getting a little weird around you, that's it's a clutch tendency, and I think I think weird stuff too, with the whole showers. I'm like, well, and some other, and I'm about to go to Panama and visit my wife's grandmother, and she's gonna be 90 here, so
Wow,
it's super. We love her to death.
that's awesome.
Her yaya, but yeah, we're gonna go see them. But they have a beach house and they have a shower, an outside shower. It looks amazing,
That's
but there
awesome.
is there's no hot water in there, so you gotta get a shower in how you get a shower in. But also I think, hey, what if a kid, I live right here on the water. What if a kid's in the water or something like that?
Yep.
We had a dog that we found in the water. One of my neighbors, he had a dog that was blind and it was deaf and it fell in the water. And we're
Oh
out
wow.
here. Yeah, my daughter jumped in, like it was her kid or something, man. It was so awesome. But yeah, you never know. You do weird stuff like that. You got to test yourself. Even with the apple cider vinegar. I mean, it tastes terrible, but you get it out of the way. The health benefits of it are just, it's second to none.
Yeah. Well, it's funny too. My wife and I have 3 children. I'm sorry. That's going to come back to bite one of them. We have 4 children. They're
Somebody
gonna have
needs
to
to
pick
step up
one.
in that
Yeah,
house.
it was 3 daughters and 1 son we have, and they're all grown and out of the house now. We have 2 grandsons, but
Oh,
my
awesome.
27-year-old daughter just moved back in with us with her husband. We love it. He's a ray of light. She's phenomenal. He's similar to you. He grew up in the his own words, the ghetto of Cleveland, but he
Yeah.
and his twin brother never knew his father, never met his father, but just a hardworking, God-loving, great young man. But we're going to Cancun, our whole family and some extended
Awesome.
family at the end of the school year. So he calls me coach. And he said, "Coach, let's do a competition together." I'm like, "All right, Jeremy, what do you want to do?" He's like, "Well, how about we start doing like a mile challenge, like just on our phones, like every day we'll just clock how many miles we did." I'm like, "Fantastic." And we were going to share every Sunday what we had done the previous week. So the first week, he thought he was going to blow me away, and not that I've lost many times in my life and will continue to, but I was like, if I can control it, I'm going to try, give everything I have. So the first week, I had beat him by several miles, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, like I had no idea." I'm like, "Oh, you just call me old now, what's up?"
Uh-huh.
So we kept on increasing just the competition. Just competition breeds success. So I won the first week, the second week, the third week. By the fourth week, I was doing anywhere from 11 miles to 17 miles a day. And I,
Good
and
Lord.
and I hate cardio. I'm not built for cardio. This body is not built for cardio. My knee was killing me. My feet were killing me.
Oh,
I wasn't showing it to them at all. They'd come down and have dinner with us, and they'd go upstairs to their bedroom, whatever. And I'd whisper to my wife, "I'm dying right now. Like my knees are killing me," but I wasn't going to show it. We agreed to, after the fourth or fifth week, he beat me on the final week. And he's like, "Coach, can we just do a different competition?" Now, outwardly, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, if you want to. Inside, I'm like, praise Jesus. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, we can. So we switched the conversation, the competition rather. But the reason I bring that up is we, you know, I think whether we compete not with other men necessarily, but if we say, listen, I want to be the best dang husband my wife has, God willing, she's my first wife, my last wife, you know, but
Yeah.
I want to be when she's around the lunch table at work, or when she's talking to other people and they're bad mouthing their husbands doing nothing or whatever it may be. I want to make sure that she knows that I give her everything and she is my first priority. So I think as coaches and as just human beings, if we can fall in love with competition and even competing with the man we were yesterday, we're going to have very few regrets in this life.
Amen to that, Coach. Amen. I'm going to step inside because it's getting a little too dark out here. But yeah, just
sounds good.
Just to walk with me if you could. But yeah, that's the cool. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, as you're doing that, you know, I see the bald Coach K. My first name is, as you can see out here, Kurt. I was like, all right, two bald guys with K. And I don't want to say her name if you don't, but I did see on one of your pictures. I believe one of your daughters has the same first name as one of my daughters.
Is that right? Yeah, go ahead and say it. That's fine.
So Sophia.
That's my granddaughter.
Your granddaughter. You got a granddaughter too? All right, that's very cool.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, she's 10 years old, and we actually did a podcast on the Way of the Warrior Kid. Are you familiar with Jocko Willink?
Yeah, actually, I had a chance. He lives out here. Well, I shouldn't say lives. One of his houses out here in San Diego. So my son and I went to go hear him speak one time at a real small venue. It was really awesome. And then the very next day, my wife and I were at La Jolla. Have you been out to San Diego?
No, sir.
So we were. We don't live in Coronado. I can't afford to coach. I can afford to coach there, not live there. But we don't live on island. We're about 25 minutes off. But the day after my son and I went to go hear Jocko speak, my wife and I had gone to the beach. And we're getting back into my truck, and I look over my shoulder, and there's this wedding rehearsal going on. And lo and behold, Jocko's right there. I'm proud of myself because I wanted to be like, Jocko, you know, like a fangirl. I didn't say anything. Obviously, you can let him have his time and stuff. And I'm like that. He was like 20 feet away from me. I'm like, that's pretty cool. But that guy's a stud. So your granddaughter read The Warrior Kid?
Yes, sir. She's read all the books, and then I got her. They just came out with the 5th book, pretty much. So when we were live, I kind of had her. You know, she always helps me out. She helps me out around here all the time. It's so funny. I've had a couple dogs, and you know they do their dog business in the backyard, and I got a little rake, and she'll knock that out. You know, and it's funny. Awesome. What does your grandkids call you? Mine call me Pawpaw.
It's very close, Papa.
Yeah.
P-A-P-A. Yeah, Papa. Which it's funny, as we knew we were having our first grandson. That's the whole reason. So I'm born and raised in Rhode Island. My wife's from Massachusetts. We raised our kids in New Hampshire. But our oldest daughter, Hallie, came out to San Diego State. We'd come out to visit a few times. Not once, Coach. Not once did my wife and I get back in a plane and be like, oh, we should move to San Diego. The cost of living didn't make sense.
Yeah.
B, the politics. I'm not going to get political, but that doesn't make any sense. So we're like, it wasn't even a thought. As soon as we had our grandson, we're like, that's it. You know, I found out I was going to be a grandfather. My heart leapt. I was like, I'm going to be a grandfather. And I was like, oh, we got to move. And I knew I didn't want to be a grandfather on the, you know, this is great through, you know, for podcasts. I didn't want to see my grandsons or future granddaughters, if we have any, on the screen. I wanted to be in person with them. So we moved out here 8 years ago. And our 2 grandsons, we have 2 7 and 8-year-old. They're 11 months apart, are 2.5 miles away from where we live. So it's such a blessing.
Oh man, without a doubt. The thing with Sophia too, you know, she's such an inspiring girl at 10 years old. Both of her parents, they are split, and her dad is in the Coast Guard and he lives in Alabama. So pretty much she'll stay with her mom all during school year, and then she'll go visit him all during the summer when school is out. And they will switch with her during holidays and stuff like that. And, you know, so I get a lot of time with her when she's around here. And with that book, when she was, I want to say 4 years old, before she could even read, I remember we'd be on a road trip, and my wife, who she calls Lela, that's, you know, Spanish for, you know, abuela, which is, you know, your grandma pretty much. So we're Lela and Pawpaw, and I just start reading the book, and I get in character and I talk a little more deep voice like Uncle Jake would, and man, she just gravitated to it and loved it. And I mean, I look at the little rear view, and I mean, she is just beeline on me. And the cool thing is she would start asking questions, and I would be like, we discuss it for a little bit, and I'd be like, well, let's see what Uncle Jake's gonna say next, and just go into it. And so yeah, man, she's got all the books, and I even got her. There's a field manual to the 4th volume.
All
and
right.
She's got that, and she read that in 2 days. And I mean, this is mine right here. This is that's my bad boy right there. Yeah,
I love it.
This one. That's the field manual. The discipline equals freedom, and I got a leadership and strategy over here. But yeah, I mean, I just wish that when I was a young kid that I had that. And the funny thing is with the whole book, The Way of the Warrior Kid, is I actually got it for my nephew when he was younger. And, I had it shipped to the house here in Florida. And then about that same time it got to the house, we had shipped something to Texas, and our dad in Texas did not get it. So we were, at that time I was like, well, I'm not sending anything out. When we go to Virginia, I'll take it with me in a suitcase so I know he gets it. But I just was like, let me just see if this book is, okay for him. And I went through like a couple pages. Next thing you know, Coach, I done read this book. I ordered the next one, and the next one. And I've read every single book myself. And
I love it.
It's just something that everybody can get some good stuff from it. And when I had her on the podcast, it's so cool because Coach Taylor, who you were going to get interviewed with, and we'll definitely have him in for the next one. But he asked her, he was like, what's one story that, that you learned from the book? And, she just kind of went into bullying and everything and told about, how it was dealing with the bully. And, the bully had some issues that they were dealing with, and that's why they were the way they were. And then ended up, the bully joined their team, and they were all best of friends and everything. But it was just so neat just seeing her, be able to just tell that story. I was just like, oh my gosh, man, it's so cool that she gets that and everything. And it is, man, it's just it's one of those where she's on the path and everything. And everybody that you need to get you the right path, and stay on it. And some people's paths are different, but it's about doing the right thing. And when you do get good or you do feel successful, I think you grab the ones that you love the most, and you push, pull, or drag them with you. You know what I mean? As an OL coach, that's what we used to say. If you're in that line, you push, pull, or drag, get that guy out of the hole. But
it's funny too, as you're talking here, Coach. I'm looking at you and I'm listening to you and relating to your discussion about your granddaughter. I'm like, man, this guy does not look like a grandfather. What a blessing it is for both of us to be young grandfathers, but also at the same time, what a responsibility. Our health, and I will go to the grave believing this. As soon as we choose, whether it's by accident or not, but as soon as we choose to bring another life into this world, our lives are not solely ours. They never will be. There are people watching us. Even if we go through, this raising children, sometimes you are the hero to your children. And sometimes we play the role of the villain because we're bringing down the consequences and we're not trying to be their best friends. We've got to parent them. But there are always eyes watching us. And we would tell our own children, my wife and I, all the time, there are people watching you. No matter where you are, someone knows you're a Hines. Act accordingly, and we tell our football players the same thing. I have a biased opinion with football, but I said, you could be a multi-sport athlete, play basketball, football, and baseball. If you do something around town, they're going to say that football player did that, or that football player did that. So I think it's important, as grandparents, what other motivations do we need to get and stay in shape? So I loved my grandparents, but my only memories of my grandparents, and my parents had me later in age. They weren't old, but later than I had children. My grandparents, my memories, them, one amputee through an infection he had, never saw him out of a wheelchair. My other grandparents were what I picture grandparents shuffling around at 89, 90 years old, whatever it was. I'm like, man, I want I want to work out with my grandsons. Now I've taken them to the weight room. They're mentally, they don't want to do that yet, but I've taken them there. I want my grandsons and any other grandchildren I may be able to be blessed to have, to see Papa coaching football, working out, running, doing stuff, living life to set the example for them that life doesn't have to stop. I just heard something. I got it. It's not my own because I'll give credit if I remember who said it. But they were talking about getting married and you settle down. Oh, it was not George. I coached with George Peterson. It was who's that guy Peterson? So well spoken.
Oh, Jordan Peterson.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah.
And he was talking about the concept of marriage. He's like, yeah, we just and just settle down. He's like, no, how about grow up together, just live together? And I think so many people have this image of you get to a certain age, then you stop living. I don't have to work out anymore. I don't have this anymore. Like, listen, if you want quality of life, we should keep ramping it up. And I may not be able to bench the same thing I did when I was in college or squat the same thing. My knees can't do it. But if I can keep challenging myself and my players, if they see me fail in the weight room, every failure is one step closer to succeeding. So it's just, I don't know. I think it's such motivation to, as husbands, fathers, grandfathers, coaches, we get a lot of eyes watching us. And yes, we're blessed. It is our life, but man, we get to live it to help others as well.
Yeah, without a doubt. I try to say to, I even told her, I said, sometimes when you're not feeling good is the best time to go do something good for somebody.
Amen.
And when you see somebody that looks sad, that's when you give them a compliment, because you never know what kind of impact, people are going through things. And, with the whole COVID deal, that was just such a mind boggling thing. You got away from seeing people's smile and stuff like that. And, that's the thing with me and you, Coach. I think, that we're very passionate. We're very passionate guys. And there's a really thin line between, somebody that's passionate and somebody that, you would consider as aggressive.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
What do you think about that?
It's funny. One of the first things you said, and I'm going to paraphrase because my memory's not that, it's probably too many concussions. My memory's not that good. But when we started the podcast, you had mentioned something about, how I'll say whatever I want and speak whatever I believe in.
Yeah.
I take that as a tremendous compliment. I appreciate that because I think, without getting preachy to your audience, I believe firmly in God, and I believe there's a Satan. And I believe Satan wants to shut us up and put a muzzle on us and have us just kind of go with the flow and not, shake the status quo. And that's not what we were created for. We were created to live greatness, by greatness. And I realize I'm not everyone's cup of tea. I realize there are people that probably see my videos that go, and you keep scrolling, and that's great. I also realize there are people that watch my videos and go, you know what, I needed that right now. You may have seen, and I won't go into great detail, but when my father passed away last summer, I remember sitting on my couch. My wife had gone to work, and I just did a video. And I remember saying in the video also, I had snot bubbles, I had veins pop, and I was a complete mess. But I remember saying something to the effect of, I don't even know why I'm doing this, maybe just for myself. And I posted it because it was on my heart, and I thought, you know what, this might resonate with one person. It got like crazy amount of retweets, which I thought was weird. I was like, because it was about me and my father dying. But the coolest thing I hope I never forget was I literally had hundreds of people that reached out, very blessing, saying great things about my father, those that knew him. Some people just thanking me for sharing what I shared. But there was this one woman, Coach, I don't remember her name, and I wouldn't say it if I did. She reached out to me and said, sent a very long private message on Twitter. And she said, my husband and I had a falling out with our son, something like 4 years ago, haven't spoken in 4 years. He's 30-something years old. We sent him your video, and he just called us. And I lost it again. I was like, God, if that heartache, if that sorrow brought one person closer to their family member, that's what it's about. So I think more people have got to be able to put stuff out there. Just put it, if it's on your heart, put it out there. We might, I think, sometimes think no one else wants to hear my story. It's not that different from someone else's. I don't know you that well, but I already feel a stronger connection because I actually hopped on when I got an email saying that you'd be doing the podcast. I had a few minutes. I'm like, let me scroll through some of his stuff. And I saw the picture of the house that you grew up in or a similar house and to where you are now. And then I watched one of your videos with a gentleman, I guess an old wrestler that I forget the gentleman's name, but you were in your backyard and some guy. And I'm like, man, I just love his energy. And I think too often we and I'm guilty of this, think, what will people say? Did I say the right word? Did I not say the right word? Put it out there. The right person's going to hear it at the right time. And if it doesn't save a life, but I believe it may, it might change a life. And if I have one coach that hears something I say about how I run our practices, or not I, we, I hate to say I, how my staff and I run our practices, how I believe about conditioning and not using it as punishment, whatever it may be. If it helps bless one coach, that's going to affect who knows how many players. And if I can share something that helps one father or grandfather be a better husband or grandfather or wife, whatever it is, then I'm going to leave a legacy of someone that cared enough to put myself out there to be ridiculed, because I do get made fun of about it. I have every name in the book. That's okay. I think if I was saying this to my son the other day, if we know who we are and whose we are, that's all that matters. I know who I am and whose I am. I know why I'm here. And if God takes me home tomorrow, I know I lived not a perfect life. I've messed up a lot. I've been arrested more times than I can remember. That's a fact. But I lived a life that I was called to live. And if God keeps me here to be in my 90s or 100s, then I'm going to keep every day to try to make a difference. It's a blessing.
Amen. That adversity, adversity is to me, it just seems like it's something that, the younger generation is having a little bit more difficulty with, and I don't know. At one time I was working at a big time hotel chain that everybody knows. And one of the things they did there was they would put, one of the senior people that worked there with one of the younger people that would work there. And the thing that was so neat that happened was that the younger person really helped the older person with the technology, with what was going on the computer and stuff like that. And what the senior member did is they really taught them very well how to speak in person and how to shake hands and how to look people in the eye. And I thought it was a really positive thing that the hotel did. And, and that's why we're doing the podcast, Coach. We're doing this because, unless you know us and you're blessed enough to have us go into talking about some of the things we're talking about, you're never going to hear this stuff. So we're literally documenting history. And exactly like you said, you saved that one kid, probably saved his life. For him to call his parents, that's a magical thing. And that's the great thing about being a coach is, some people just do not want to listen to their parents. They live with them and they're just used to the same thing, and it just gets old. Or, maybe they're not being that, maybe they're do as I say, not as I do. They're not, showing them the blueprint of the way they need to be successful in their life, and I think your rituals that you do, that shows what your DNA is to your success level and everything. But yeah, it's just, it's one of those, we had mentioned it earlier. That place I grew up in was a place called Park Lee in Richmond, Virginia. And in the 1980s, during the time I lived there for about 4 or 5 years, but at that time, they were averaging about 1,000 911 calls a year. So close to 3 a day. And, I never remember seeing police cars come in there, only ambulances and fire trucks and stuff like that. And, we played in the sandbox and everybody looked different. You had white kids, brown kids, red kids, you had kids, and, and it was one of those where you would see somebody, I guess, that got evicted. To me, it seemed like whatever the rent was you could afford, they would take you, but people would get evicted. And you would see these huge beds and stuff sitting there by the huge trash can. And us little knuckleheads would be over there thinking, we were the Hulk Hogan and the Iron Sheik, and we're jumping on this stuff. Good Lord. It's probably the only reason I've never have gotten COVID, that just drinking, right out of the hose. We didn't even have a hose. We just had to get on the little iron part and drink out of it, but, and we were, man, we at that age, it was, you'd go out and play in the dark, till it's dark outside. And we would go on little adventures where, 4 of us would be walking and we thought we were the Goonies and stuff. But, that's kind of what we knew. I didn't realize, how dangerous it was. I just thought, people fist fight. I've seen plenty of grown men fist fight and stuff like that. And I mean, the people that lived above me, they were bikers. I don't know if they were, what biker crew they were, but I mean, I remember I had the top bunk. And it would sound like you would just hear boots and you just felt like it was going to crash. I remember just having so many nightmares of that stuff. And, I think just me going through that, I feel like I can talk to people that have had it, sad or terrible. And, with my one guy I was telling you that did the mixed martial arts, man, we had him on and he was saying how, that they actually had holes in the roof of the place he was living at. And that if it was raining outside, literally it was raining inside. And he had said a couple times where he'd be sitting there sleeping and he had 6 people in the house, and he got bit by a rat. You know what I mean? And now this guy is 5-0 in mixed martial arts. And, to me, it seems like he's, driven by demons almost. You know what I mean?
Yep.
He's been able to kind of channel that stuff. And how do you tell kids? Because, when kids are dealing with that negative stuff, I'm just a big believer in, if you get a good workout in, if you work on the body, that, the mind will kind of follow.
Yeah. I think the biggest success I've had with working with not just my high schoolers, I'm blessed to coach, but my 4th graders, I teach elementary school, is being transparent and sharing our flaws and sharing our bad days and sharing our, I got into a fight with 3 police officers as a drunk kid the summer after a freshman year of college. So I had 3 felonies. I had to do 300 hours community service. Long story, they got lowered from felonies to simple assaults. I would have never been able to be a teacher or a coach with 3 felonies. But I'm a firm believer people can change if they choose to change. You can't change them. I can't change them. That's a heartbreaking lesson I think we all have to learn as parents and coaches and teachers. But we can empower them to see the strength they have in themselves. We can help lead them to making a change if they desire to. And I think one of the best things is to sit down with a struggling player and say, just listen to them. And then depending on where the conversation goes, say, can I tell you a little bit about myself? Because I think so often our players see Coach Bald or Coach Hines, Coach, has this level of success or is this and that, and they put us on a pedestal that we don't belong on, we didn't ask to be put on, and they think we have all life figured out. And whether we do kind of have it figured out or not, there were moments in our lives or periods or chapters or you name it, where life was not only figured out for us, but it was messed up. It was messed up bad. And for me, like I said, I got arrested not just that one time, countless times. And it became a big joke. It was like, hey, my friends would wake me up on a Saturday morning and say, Hines, let's recap last night. And I thought it was great. And then I got married at 22. And talking about a blessing, my wife, she was never married before, but she had our oldest daughter before we met. So actually, I met my daughter, Hallie, when she was a year and a half old. I was working at a daycare center at a ski mountain, which is a real manly thing to do.
Wow.
But that's where I met her. But about a month and a half before we got married, I remember sitting on the couch in my in-laws' place. We were living with them for a little bit, and I was just kind of having a daydream of my wife walking down or me seeing my wife, or me walking down the stairs, hearing my wife apologize to our kids about the way Dad behaved when he was drunk.
Wow.
Now, it never happened, but I had that, and that was a paradigm shift for me because I thought to myself, I refuse. Because it was always a joke for me. Oh, I beat up some cops. Ha, 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 ha. Oh, yeah, I'm on probation for a while. Or, yeah, hey, I got my butt kicked last night, but boy, it was a rush. It was fun. It was a paradigm shift where I don't ever want to hear my wife apologizing to our children for something Dad did when he was drunk. Well, I don't ever, so I quit drinking. I was just like, this is not part of my story I can do at this time right now. And if that ever changes, whatever. But I think when I meet with players now and I share different stories with them, or I share some stuff that probably others wouldn't want me to share, in confidentiality, that I share about myself, it allows them to say, oh, wow, there is a way out. As dark as things may seem right now, I think so often teachers and coaches and parents are the best of problems. Say, oh, you're perfect just the way you are. No, sometimes they need to hear, hey, you're being a big screw up right now. You're really messing things up, and you're going to end up in jail for the rest of your life. Or you're going to end up paralyzing someone in a fight that you thought was real funny, or being paralyzed, or whatever it may be. And I had that for me. I had a police officer one time, sergeant, that I got arrested. The following morning, he pulled me into his office and he said, "Hey, Officer Young told us about a fight in Barrington where I grew up. You beat up 3 of his cops. Tell me about it." And I started to very humbly tell him about it, but it wasn't inside. I was proud still. I was still proud about how I handled myself in that fight, which is very ridiculous. And he baited me. He's like, no. He's like, "Tell me the good stuff." He's like, he said you beat up his guys pretty bad. So I fell for it. So I started telling him about the things that happened and stuff, and some lucky punches and other punches. And I remember him slamming his fist on the desk, scared the crap out of me. And he goes, "Do you know how many tough guys are in prison for the rest of their lives because they thought it was funny and cool?" And he just continued to go on and on and on. I don't remember all the words, but I remember that moment. I was like, wow, this is a guy I just met. I played center in high school. Our quarterback, his father was the chief of police in Barrington. So these two were connected. So he knew a little bit about my history. And he said to me, he goes, "Listen, Kurt," or Hines, or whatever he called me. He's like, "Everyone I talk to about you says you're a great kid. You're a great athlete. You're a great student, but you do a lot of stupid stuff when you're drunk. How long is this going to continue for?" And it made a little bit of an impact, a little bit, for a few months. And then I just kept going back into it again. And then when I met my wife, as I said, that's when I had that paradigm shift of, listen, I don't want to ever have that moment where I apologize or have someone else apologize for my behavior. So I took ownership, kind of going back to Jocko, extreme ownership of, listen, I can live whatever life I want, but if I want to live a life I'm proud of, it comes down to me and me only. Like I need to stop screwing around and getting into fights and thinking I'm so tough. And now I still think I'm tough a little bit until my knees start to feel a certain way, or my shoulder does. Like I'm not that tough anymore. And in all seriousness, I think I define toughness differently now. It doesn't take a tough guy to go beat someone else up. Matter of fact, I heard Jocko on one of his podcasts talk about, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said when someone comes up, on the street to fight him, he's like, my best move, walk away. This guy's a bad man. He's a bad man that would probably beat many of us up. But he's smart now. He understands what toughness is all about now. And it's not about beating someone up. It's about, hey, having enough love for your family, for your wife, for your children, for your grandchildren. Just, hey, listen, this isn't worth it. Nothing's worth it, and to walk away. So to be able to sit with players, it was a very long answer to your question, so I apologize.
Oh, no, that's awesome, man. Yeah. I got one I want to ask you. So with my wife, like and I kind of learned this, over time and the hard way. We would go on, like, say we had to go over to Orlando or something, and we're on the road and we're going a good little ways, and I got everything I need, snacks, water, all that good stuff. And then all of a sudden, she would kind of just, as we're driving, "Hey, do we need anything from the store?" As we're driving on the highway. And it took me a couple times where I was like, "No, we got everything we need. We're going." But what it really means is I have to use the bathroom. It's code. I was wondering, do you have that with your wife, or do you guys always, say exactly what you need to say? And because for me, sometimes, it's a good hint, as where if it was me and you, Coach, riding, what would you have said?
Hey, I gotta go to the bathroom.
I gotta take a leak, pull over next exit, but that's kind of how it is, how it was for me. And it's funny. A lot of times I get these hints, but I'm just like, man, I don't want to figure this. I don't want to, I don't want to go through this maze. What's going on?
Draw it up on a card and show me. Like you're a scout coach. Yeah, just show me what you want me to do.
Can I get an A or a B to pick from here? What's going on?
Is this a combo block? How am I doing this? No, my wife, she is my best friend. Married for 28 years.
Awesome.
We have tremendous relationship now. However, it comes like anything else, like training a muscle of going through those painful moments of, oh, okay, so you need to go to the bathroom. So you didn't want to just ask me, we're in a place now where I think we're always trying to continue to progress and get to know each other better and love each other more and show that love. But yeah, the communication is great now. When it first started out, our relationship was young, like most young couples. I'm sure there were a lot of painful learning curves that she had to endure through my not getting the little hints or something like that.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's one thing that resonates with me. I heard, and I love listening to something positive or influential. Like I used to drive to work for 40 minutes, and every morning at the time they had a YouTube, motivational channel where you could click on there, and you would hear Jocko, you would hear Tony Robbins, you would hear CT, you would hear all kind of different guys, but I think it was the Tony Robbins where he was like, if you treat the relationship like you did in the beginning, there won't be an ending.
Amen.
And I thought that was super positive. And yeah, guys, that's what we're here, Totem Bowl Nation. That's what we're here for, to give you guys some life advice tonight. So
Ab-
definitely save that one right there. That's
Absolutely.
definitely.
And I've heard it said before too, Coach, you never stop dating your wife. And I think that's so true. It's just we start to let ourselves go. And I had a friend years ago that said, he was asking me, he's like, do you think it's okay for older couples to let themselves go? And I was like, well, yeah. And then he's like, no. He's like, why? Well, don't stop pursuing your wife. Don't stop chasing and don't stop doing the things, whether it's combing your hair, shaving your head, whatever it is, working out.
Yeah.
Keep pursuing your wife. And if you don't, someone else will. And that's not a threat. It's just, listen, and let's pretend that our wives would never. And I think both. I know my wife is. She's like, I don't look at other men. She's like, I don't. I don't want to. I don't need to. Whatever. And I kind of believe her, but I'm like, that guy's jacked. Do you see him or whatever it is? And she's like, Kurt, you checked out jack guys more than I do, just about admiring because we know the work that goes into it.
Yeah.
But I think we've just got to continue pursuing our wives and turn this full circle into coaching. I think we need to keep coaching like the first week of our new job, whatever it was, as a volunteer or first year as a head coach or first year as online, whatever it was. If we continue to show up with that passion, it's palpable. People can taste it. And I used to think my first stint as a head coach in New Hampshire before moving out here to San Diego, I thought, man, I got to share my why with every single one of our players. I got to mentor these players. And I wasn't wrong in doing that. What I've evolved to is I've got to share my why with every single one of these players, with their families, with every one of the coaches, and not just the coaches that come onto our staff that are new, but sometimes there are coaches that have coached longer than we have, but they coached under some jackwagon coach that used kids instead of empowered them, that did all the things to stat their resume to go on somewhere else. They didn't really care about, 2 pence. I love the lunch pail story you shared that you did
Yeah.
and you do with the young men, because that's above and beyond what the coaching title says, if there's such a thing, or the responsibility. And your players know that. They know that what you're doing is not in some manual somewhere that says, hey, give a little bit extra, pour in a little bit more, bring something special for them. But those are the things that build relationships. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, but whether it's with our wife or our players, anyone in life, if our number one goal, and this is my prayer daily, help me to empower someone else today. And if I can go to bed at night knowing that I made one person smile, whether it's holding a door for a stranger or helping someone through if they were suicidal, something totally extreme, opposite ends. But man, that's what we're called to do. Make life not easier, but make life better for other people.
Without a doubt, coach. And that's the thing, man. My wife, she's my best friend. And, her story, I want her to write a book herself. At one time she was super poor and she has two sisters, two brothers, and her mom, they were living in a car. So and now she's in the medical field. She just opened a business, St. Pete Rejuvenate, here, where they do from facials to Botox to ketamine infusion for people that are suffering severe chronic pain and severe depression and bipolarism. So and the thing with her, she didn't finish with the seventh grade. She didn't finish the seventh grade, so she did all this with a GED. And it's just, her story is so inspiring, and she's just such a rock star, man. She's just one of these just super fast paced ladies, and she's just amazing. And we dated for 15 years and then got married. We wanted to make sure the daughters were very successful and everything, and they both are. And so we got married, and we got married in the backyard. And you're gonna love this, coach. Guess what her walk down song was?
I think I'm Back in Black, just because I'm gonna love it. I don't know.
Close. It was Eye of the Tiger.
Yes, I lied.
Yeah.
By far my favorite movie series of all time, 1 through 4.
And
Two's the
Coach,
best.
I'll tell you what,
That's awesome.
I was nervous. I was happy. I was, sad, crying. I had every emotion going on. Like I thought I was going to lose it. But then when she played that, man, I started laughing. And I mean, everybody just got up, started cheering, man. It was so,
That's outstanding.
it was so awesome. And it was one of the best days of my life. It was such a blessing, and to have it, in the backyard. And, this was after COVID, and some people couldn't even make it and all that good stuff. But it just it was amazing. It was super fun, and yeah, man, she's
I
my
love
wife.
that.
She's such a rock star. Everybody that knows her is the same way, and yeah, man, good stuff. And another thing, I'm gonna go back a little bit, but you know how you were saying, um, that some parents are like, oh, that's a great job, you did such a good job. Well, back to my granddaughter, at one time her and her girlfriend were in the backyard, and we have a swimming pool, and they were like, Papa, and her friend, same thing, called me Papa too, and just awesome little girls, probably 6 or 7 at the time. They're like, if you can, would you mind, being the judge for our cannonball contest? And I was like, without a doubt, you will not find a better judge. So, they both go over there, almost stumble in the pool, just about the worst cannonball you've ever seen.
Yeah.
So I get over there, I stand up, and I'm like, look, first off, this is a competition, and you're going to have a judge like me. You need to walk up there, you need to smile, okay? And then when you get ready, you got to jump with both feet and launch yourself up in the air. Okay. I want to see some serious vertical. Like, I couldn't even put my credit card under that. You did not get up in the air. And I said, in third, you got to do a serious tuck and really make a big splash, And I did. At first I gave them like both a 4.5. And then they both, I mean, you should have seen it. They walked up there and, I mean, just gleaming, looking so pretty. And then, I mean, both of them jumped, as high as they possibly could. They tried to touch the moon. They jumped so high. And then both of them tucked and, had a good splash. And afterwards, I was like, I'm going to give you guys a 7. And they just lost it. They were so happy.
That's awesome.
But that's what it was. Like, even at that young age, if you critique them and give them things that they can get better at, they're gonna try to impress you if you if you kind of raise the standard and everything. And
absolutely, I love that.
How do you you've been coaching for what, 26 years now?
Yeah, currently just I'm going to count this off season as part of it, but yeah, heading into my 26th.
Wow. Yeah. How do you come up with new things every year, or do you kind of stick with the same thing that kind of got you there? And like, staff wise, do you keep the same guys or bring guys in? How you guys doing it over there?
Great question. So in Bedford, it was different in Bedford, New Hampshire, because Coronado Island has what they call North Island. So part of it is the naval base, which I love our military, support them. A lot of my assistant coaches are active or retired military. That being said, in New Hampshire, I think there's so much value, regardless of where you are, having a staff that's been together for 7 years, 10 years, 15 years. There's so much that can work with that, if it's the right guys and the women, whoever the coaching staff may be. With the North Island, there's a revolving door of families that'll come in, and I hired a quarterback coach last spring. Great young man, eager, decent. He had never coached before, but decent or very good playing experience, great energy. And then just before football started, he got transferred somewhere else. I've had players that come in, and so that's a tremendous challenge. As far as me, 26 years adding stuff or holding on stuff, I did fall victim. Now that I hate the word victim, I hate that I said that. I fell into the trap. I wasn't a victim; it was a choice of going to coaching clinics and trying to absorb as much as I could. And my playbooks got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the bigger they got, the worse we got. And it was my fault. So what I do now is if I'm gonna change something with our program, whether it's the strength and conditioning, whether it's our offense, I'm the offensive coordinator as well as being the head coach, I'm gonna take something else out and say, all right, I'm putting this in because it's better than that. Whether it's a formation, a motion, whatever it is. Years ago, I'm sure you've heard of this guy. Let me preface it by saying I hadn't. You know, when you go to clinics, sometimes you're like, man, at the same slot, there are two guys that were in here talk.
Oh.
I can't be two places at once. I got to choose one. And then sometimes you look at the schedule and you're like, we don't run that offense. We don't run that defense. I'm going to go in the lobby and just kind of connect and network with some guys because I don't want to hear anyone talk. About 15 years ago or so, when still living on the East Coast, there was no workshop I wanted to go to. Football. I was like, oh, fantastic. I'll go there. Guy by the name of Boyd Epley, who I had never heard of at the time. Epley was the strength coach for Nebraska for like 36 years. This guy,
Wow.
do you remember Jack LaLanne?
I do think that, yeah.
He's some old, well before our time, more of our father's, grandfather's time, but just this just muscle bound, guru of his own time. Well, this guy, Boyd Epley, looked like Jack LaLanne, but just had done a lot more deadlifts, a lot more cleans, a lot more squats. So I went there. And I remember thinking to myself, he did 3 seminars back to back with a breakout session after each one. And I sat through the first one, packed house. And he said a lot of things that ruffled a lot of feathers. After the first one, half the room was empty. What the freak? I walked out of there, coach, learning more in those 3 hours than I knew my first 10 years coaching, whatever it was at the time. It was just a wealth of knowledge. So I changed almost everything I did that following year about the way I teach cleans and the triple extension and the phases of it. And I was like a sponge. I just learned so much. Now when a coach will come up to me, an assistant coach, say, hey, what about this play? Or what that play? I'll always say, hey, draw it on the board, show it to me against different fronts. Let's talk about it. And then I'll say, yeah, that's great. Let's look at what can we get rid of that accomplishes the same thing, but this is better. And there have been times where I'm like, I love that. Let's do it. And then there are times I'm like, listen, no, I know you saw this on Madden. However, this isn't Madden. Let's change it a little bit. So I'm cautious now when I make changes. I love holding on to staff. I have 2 thoughts on that. If we can have a cohesive staff that loves one another, that knows our number one goal is to empower those we're blessed to coach in football secondary, I want to hold on to them as long as possible. The only reason I say there's 2 facets of that is if I have a young coach or whatever, any age, that says, hey, I want to be a head coach also, I feel like it's my job to help them, to include them a little bit more on some behind the scenes things, to help prepare them and say, hey, listen, I don't want you to leave, but if you want to, I'll write you the best letter of recommendation ever because I want to help you achieve your goals as well. So there's a fine line of bringing new things and people in, but making sure it's for the right reasons. That's going to make us all better.
Absolutely. So with my background, kind of the way I could explain it is, there was a coach, Jacobs. They called him Coach Jake, and he was at the University of West Virginia in the 80s. Is when he was coaching, 80s, 90s there. But he ended up being he was the offensive line coach there. And then after that, he ended up going to Ohio State. And that's, he was there for several years, coached Orlando Pace. But yeah, it was Coach Jake that was my offensive line coach, Coach Bland's coach. So he's the one that kind of, I think where we kind of built that tradition at our high school, L.C. Bird there in Chesterfield, Virginia. I think that's who kind of, those guys kind of brought that on to us. Those were the guys that, so I didn't get Coach Jake. He did not coach me, but because, he was the coach that coached my coach. He's always a guy that I'm gonna praise and kind of give full credit to because our coach wouldn't have been who he is without him. And then it's like a whole tree, it's a whole pyramid underneath that, and it's pretty awesome. I know we got guys that are in Texas now that are coaching, and a lot of guys in that Virginia area, and at different levels too. But that's what I kind of want to go into here with you is like, from influences and stuff like that. Like as a young guy, for me, I was a kid that I was watching 2 things, Coach. I was watching probably this right here. That's NFL Tough Guys. And I was the biggest Dick Butkus fan. And so in little league football, I'm talking in the 80s, I'm over here yelling, hey, double wing right, you know, and I'm thinking I'm Dick Butkus and, you know, that'll cool you off. And, you know, I'd tackle guys and I'd look at them and say, you know, remember me, I'm the man that did this to you and stuff like that. Like I was doing this at Little League, you know, that's all I would be watching. I'd be watching this before games, and I would be watching pro wrestling. I'd be watching, you know, Hawk and Animal, the Legion of Doom, man. They were my favorites. Loved me some Hulk Hogan. This guy right here, man, Ravishing Rick Rude.
Yes, sir.
I love me some Rick Rude just because, man, awesome. he always got the crowd just so hot and everybody wanted to boo him, and he'd get out there and cut the music, you know. What I like right now is for all you such and such to keep it down while I show. Oh man, I just love that, and you know, those are you know the things that kind of influenced me, and you know why I loved football, and even like when I got up to close to high school, man, that's when you know Deion Sanders was kind of doing his thing and the prime time and stuff, and so yeah, I thought I was him, and I got this picture I got to share with you, Coach. But I call it a mullet hawk. Okay, so it's like a mullet, but the sides were shaved. Yeah. Okay, the sides were shaved, and I think one of the guys, Jason Newsted, was a guitarist for Metallica, and he kind of had that look where he would tie it back, but you would see it was you know skinned over here, but it was you know party in the back type deal. But this picture, and I got bandanas on me, and I got my gloves kind of undone, and I got this ugly mullet hawk, and I didn't even have my hair like spiked up because another guy, man. Brian Bosworth. Oh, right? Yeah, absolutely. How cool is that dude? So that's who I thought I was when I was out there. I was Ravishing Rick Rude, Brian Bosworth, the Road Warriors, mixed in with you know some Dick Butkus. Yeah, but, I love it. You know, those are some of the influences you know that I had kind of growing up and everything. And you know when you know out you know off the field, I was the you know, fun kid, always like to have fun, want to play sports and, you know, working out, doing stuff like that. But on the field, man, I was every bit of those guys, you know, and I would I remember in high school, I'd even do the Ultimate Warrior deal. Like if I got a good sack or if I pancake block somebody, I would, you know, do that stuff. And I was just blessed with so many coaches, you know, from my Pee Wee coach, Coach Mike Harefield to, you know, my Coach Bland, who was always the greatest. And that's the thing too about Troy, Troy Taylor, the head of our crew right here, man. He was just such a blessing to me because I probably met him when I was 10, 11 years old. And I first saw him at wrestling. Him and his brother were getting an autograph from Sting and Lex Luger. Wow. And I just started talking with those guys. The next thing I know, I'm playing you know, on their team and everything. And you know, we had a bond there, and it was so nice because, you know, at the time I was just, you know, I just had a single mother, and, you know, they took me to more practices and dropped me off for more practices than anything. And, you know, we loved wrestling. We'd watch the pay-per-views, and they would get the pay-per-views, and man, that was a big deal to me. Like, yeah. I used to just sit there and kind of squint on the squigglies and hope I would see something from it. And, you know, I would never see anything. And then when they would get the pay-per-views, it'd be so awesome. And, you know, the love that their parents showed, man. Like their dad was, I believe he was a former drill sergeant, man. So he was always, you know, he always kind of had his eye on us everywhere we went. You know, he had his eye. Absolutely. He had a good hand on the pulse of the boys, you know. And there's a lot of times when we grew up a little later, he wouldn't let them hang out with me. He just knew I was a bad influence, I guess. But man, their mom, Mother Teresa, she left us way too long. But man, she was just such a blessing. I remember every time I would go over there, she would always make me eat, you know, some pasta, some macaroni and cheese, some chicken, you know, something that would, you know, stick to your rib, yeah, you know, so to say. And every time, you know, just being raised by a good mother, you know, always, yes, ma'am, no, sir, always, you know, that's a bib. And I still do that to this day. But, you know, I'd always, oh, no, ma'am, I'm good. And every single time she would make me sit down. And that was really the first time I would, had got to a table and realized that's what people do. They all sit at the table and kind of, talk back and forth and eat and stuff like that. That was really the first time I was kind of used to that. And to me, it felt like, I was in court and I was the guy standing beside the judge and the judge asking me questions, you know what I mean? But it was one of those things where she did, man. She would always, ask me if I was hungry, and I would always say, no, ma'am. But every time I would clean my plate. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Out of respect. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's almost a lost art nowadays, having family meals with no, and to be honest, with my wife and I, with our kids out of the house now, we're as guilty as the next at having the TV on, and we're talking.
Yep. Yeah, we do that. Yep.
And from time to time, we do remind ourselves, and often when we go out to dinner, we're like, listen, just no phones, none of that nonsense. Let's just be present, be where our feet are. I love that. You think about influences for me growing up. I love that you mentioned the walkout song, if you will, the entrance song for your wife coming down the aisle. Because for me, I was Rocky Balboa. I was that. My parents, I needed nothing growing up. I had two God-loving, God-fearing parents, that blue collar.
Awesome.
We never went on extravagant trips, but I didn't need anything growing up. I always had food on the table. We always had, literally 1 or 2 meals a week, and then the others were leftovers. But that's what we grew up with. We were blessed to have leftovers. So my mentality was, I'm Rocky Balboa. I'm not the best looking. I'm not the smartest, but I'm gonna fight like anyone else. And I would never was the biggest or the fastest or whatever. But I think what made me better than, not all, but better than a lot of my teammates at high school and college, and there were obviously a lot that were better than me. And by the way, college, I loved it, but I played Division III college, so I'm not something I thought. I sometimes I think coaches give out this persona like, oh, I was God's gift to football. No, football was a gift to me. I just happen to play it and coach it now. But I was always that Rocky Balboa where I didn't care how many times I was punched square in the face. I think that's honestly one of the reasons I love fighting so much. I wasn't an angry kid. I'm not an angry person. I love life. I've always loved life, but I loved fighting. When you got your nose hit in a certain way and you just knew, like, oh, it's going to look different. Like, that just flipped a switch. I was like, it's on, let's go, And there were times it got my teeth kicked in. There were times my butt was just beat like a bad dog, but I just loved it, So I loved that Rocky mentality. And for me, Rocky 3 was still to this day. It shows how smart I'm not. It's a perfect metaphor for life. That if you lose sight of your why, however you want to call it, the eye of the tiger, if you take your eye off your goal, someone else is going to catch up real fast. Clever Lang, someone's going to come around who's training harder, training, more ferocious, and just going to take what you have. So whether it's your wife, your football program, don't get comfortable. Not that I'm worried about someone taking my wife or my head coaching position, but don't get comfortable. Love those you're blessed to be with and coach enough to always give your best and give everything. And I will also, I'll make this quick. My first coaching experience ever was under a head coach that knew the game, and that's important, but he served people. He served people. When my father passed away, he drove down 2.5 hours to be at the funeral. We had flown back east, and I was blessed to coach with a man that understood football. And the reason that's so important to me is because I understand there are a lot of people that come fresh out of college or high school playing the sport they love, and their first coaching experience is with some jackwagon coach that just abuses and misuses and mistreats people, and they think that's what coaching is. So I was blessed to learn from someone that loved the game, but more importantly, loved people first and foremost.
Amen. Without a doubt. Let me ask you this, Coach. Has anybody ever said you might look like a member of Anthrax, the rock band?
I have. I got to grow this out a little bit longer and learn how to play the guitar. I've heard that several times. The funniest thing is, and you probably...
He looks like you, Coach. He looks like you. Let me get that right, okay?
There you go. Thank you. I've had many times also people like, oh, you're military. I'm like, no. They're like, yeah, you are. No, I'm not. I had one guy back in a gym in New Hampshire one time. He's like, oh, you're that bouncer from that bar. And I was like, I teach elementary school and coach football. I'm not. And he wouldn't believe me. He's like, yes, you are. I'm like, fine. Sure. Tell me you know me next time. I get told I look like a lot of things. Usually it's not an elementary school teacher. Football coach is one of them. But yeah, I've heard that before.
You also seem like a very patriotic guy. I'm a very patriotic guy. My brother's been military his whole life. He's 4 years older than me and still collecting since he was 17 years old. So
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of those guys, and having all those military guys on your program, man. That's
such a blessing.
phenomenal. That is phenomenal. I believe every football team, needs at least one guy on staff, that has been through the military, that can talk to guys, because there's no bigger brotherhood than going to battle with your brother.
Yeah, huge supporter. I don't really believe I have regrets in life. I've done a lot of stupid stuff and things I'm like, damn. But once again, for me, it's the mentality of it happened for me, not to me. Even if it was my own stupidity, which most of it was. Um, my father was in the Navy. I wish I had served the country, and I realize there's different ways to serve the country. But as far as militaries, I never did. But yeah, having um, gosh, a lot of our assistant coaches are active and or retired military, Navy and Marines, and love having them on staff. One funny story was I had a gentleman on staff a few years ago, retired Navy SEAL, who now in his adult life trains Navy SEALs. He's a bad man. He's a
Oh
great
yeah.
man, but he's a bad man. We have a no swearing policy on our football team. Wherever a player swears, not a big deal. Practice, weight room, locker room, wherever. If it's within earshot, they're doing 25 push-ups. If a coach
Okay.
swears, we're doing 25 push-ups. Same thing.
Good.
And I don't care if it's the middle of a game, whatever. And I do often say the reason for that is our oldest daughter. She owns her own business. She has our two grandsons. I am so proud of her. She swears like a sailor. She didn't grow up with it. She didn't hear me saying it, but that's just how she is. She's an amazing woman. I don't think people that swear are less intelligent or less of anything. It's just for a football team, we're not going to do it. I don't
Yep.
want my grandsons to come to a game or a practice and hear Papa say words they don't hear in the house. I don't want my fourth graders to come by a game or a practice, and I don't want to be in a game or a game, and have an official make what we think is a bad call, because often once you watch film, you're like, oh, he was right or she was right. So we have that policy. We were in a game a few years ago, and I hear with the headsets on, I hear, oh, what the I hear the F bomb.
Ooh,
So I look
wow,
over,
that's the
and
biggest one.
yeah, so I see Coach Sanchez. Now we're getting ready to punch it in about the 20-yard line. He's at the far 30. No one else heard it except for the men on the headsets. Didn't bother me. Not an issue. No push-ups
Yeah.
needed. Fast forward about 4 minutes later, we're all down near each other. I hear it again. I go, hey, coach. And I just kind of point to the ground. He's like, sorry, coach, does his push-ups. I had to laugh
Yeah.
right in that moment, because here's a Navy SEAL that could probably tie me into a pretzel with one of his hands tied behind his back, coming from a fourth grade school teacher. He apologized after the game. I said, hey, thank you. Don't worry about it. You did your push-ups, not a big deal. And it was the first time and the only time, not an issue. Fast forward to the following morning at practice. He's like, coach, can I just apologize to the team? Like, he was just weighing on his heart. So I let him apologize to the team. And then usually I would just let that be it. But I stood before the team. I'm like, guys, Coach Sanchez has seen things and done things that most of us, thank God, have never done or seen. He's done things because he had been in combat and stuff. I said, this is what character looks like. Swearing's not that big of a deal, but if you know you have a certain standard to live by and you are in a leadership position, and I said, all of you players, whether you're a freshman or senior, you are leaders in our school community. Whether people admit it or not, they're going to watch what you do, listen to what you say. So it was a very humbling thing for me, but a very cool thing to see someone have bought in to what we were building, to say, listen, none of us, head coach or not, are more important than what we're building as a program. And to have him follow through with that. So it is. I love having military coaches on our staff and military families. And one last thing I'll say about this. I have a young man in our program now who's going to be a senior, who when they moved in town, he is the youngest of 5 brothers. They had moved like 11 times in 12 years or something crazy.
Wow.
Dad, who I know fairly well now, is a great man, but was kind of serving our country, so nothing but respect, but kind of chasing different ranks. And because of that, had to move a lot. So these young men that came to us, these 3 brothers, the older 2 didn't play for me. Great young men, love them, but angry young men. They never had a girlfriend or a teammate or a buddy that they had for longer than a year. So we've been blessed to have them. He's been with us for 4 years now, and he's, God willing, going to be able to finish and graduate and play for us next year. But I realized that it's a blessing to be able to have these young men in our program, and young women. We have 3 young women on our team that come from military backgrounds, because some of them come from very high ranking officials who live in the white picket fence house and have the fancy cars and all that stuff. And a lot of them don't. They live in military housing. And just like most of us earlier on in our marriages, they don't know where the next meal is coming from. They don't know if the power is going to be shut off. They don't know. So it's cool for me at Coronado, where you have the really affluent, wealthy families and the military families. And some affluent families teach their kids, in my opinion, the right way, the value of a dollar, and don't hand them everything. And some kids do turn 16 and get a brand new Maserati or whatever it is.
Wow.
But to get them to come together and say, hey, this is who we are. I don't care who you are separately. I do care, but I don't. But it's, in terms of our team, we're going to come together with a common goal and try to achieve something that is far greater than any of us individually. And for me, that's the greatest reward, to be able to see them come together. And that revolving door of military families has helped me evolve as a coach, because I realized that culture, I never thought it was as simple as slap a slogan on a weight room wall or a t-shirt. I knew it was more than that.
Right.
But now with that revolving door, coach, it's a living, breathing organism where I've got to make sure, not just for our own success at Coronado football, but if I have a young man that, and we had this young man who was with us for a year and a half, loved it. Father got transferred to South Korea. They don't have football. His football playing days are over. He reaches out to me, and I reach out to him through social media. But we don't know how long we have to impart our wisdom or our passion or whatever it is, how long we have to pour into these people. So we got to make the most of every day.
Man, amen, Coach. Amen. So I want to tell you a little story, and then you'll see where I'm going with it. But as I was growing up, I lived in that one neighborhood. I had this aunt, my aunt Colleen Smith, and every summer, pretty much as soon as school was done, she would go pick up my cousin Jake. He kind of lived out in the country. And then she would come right there to South Richmond and would pick up me and my brother from that horrible apartment complex that you see in that picture. And it was awesome, because she would pull up and she had this big, huge white dually. And so that thing pulling up in the hood, like, people would literally come out of their house, like, looking at it like it's a spaceship. You know what I mean? And we would go over there and get in. And, we would open the doors to get in. And I mean, we were so happy. We were going to spend all summer with her. But we would open the doors, and immediately, like, bags would fall out with, stuff from CVS or grocery store. And so we would always put that stuff back in, then hop right on top of that stuff, and boom, it was summertime. We were going to, be with our cousin and my brother the whole time. And we're all within a 4-year difference. So I was the baby. My cousin's 2 years older, Jake. My brother Ben is 4 years older than me. So we're all in that same little clique. And I remember first meeting my cousins, Richard and Francis. And, I go to shake their hands and everything. And I'm just this, little whippersnapper. And I'll never forget when I went to shake their hand. It was like shaking the bottom of a combat boot. Like, their hands were just mauled with calluses. And I was just like, I didn't know what to think,
Right.
but so, we get to our aunt's house and we get there and everything. And, there's stuff just kind of stacked everywhere. But there would be a little path, like, to the kitchen, and a little path to get you, like, to each room. But then there was just stuff, like, the bed would be clear, but then there was stuff all around it. And what it was is she was a hoarder. And I never knew what it was, but, we kind of grew up, it was something that's what it was. We didn't know what it was at the time. And man, I'll tell you what, she would get us up, 0 dark 30. And, we would usually go to Hardee's. She would get us all like a gravy biscuit. She'd get 10, 15 biscuits and have coolers full of Gatorade. And what we did is we rough graded and fine graded yards all day until it was dark. And so I had a rake and a shovel in my hand all summer long.
Love it.
And the best thing she did for us knuckleheads was, instead of, giving us cash or giving us some money or something like that, what she did, she invested in our future. She had us, she would take us to the baseball card shows and the baseball card shops. And that's what we did, man. We would get baseball cards, football cards, and all this stuff. So, at a young age, man, that was something that we all did. And we all collected cards and everything. And that was just like one of our passions, and something, that people won't know about me, unless I kind of tell that story. But yeah, man, my Aunt Colleen, she was, and we did a podcast, and that was one of the life lessons was hoarding. But, not only did she just hoard things like that, man, she hoarded our love and our relationship. And, she was, man, for the longest time, it was my mom and then it was my Aunt Colleen, man. She was like the next best thing, and she was just so awesome. And just, she's always been one that I have this mentality at work where I just always want to do the best, be the best. And I don't really have to tell anybody about it, and I tell this to Sophia. I'm like, look, I remember she was doing, she was at the fair and they had an obstacle course. She's like, Papa, is this a race? And I was like, Sophia, it's always a race.
Yes, it is.
But we don't have to tell anybody. That's the best
awesome
part. Go. And, she goes through and she tears into it. I mean, she finished like really fast. And she was like, well, what did you think? And I said, I'll tell you what I think. My favorite part was best part about the whole thing. She's like, yeah, what was it? I was like, well, you fell down, but man, you jumped up so much faster than you fell. It was so awesome, and she was just so fired up about it, and it was so cool. But yeah, it was my Aunt Colleen, man, that really instilled that kind of toughness and work mentality, and just get it done type stuff. And it was the weirdest thing, Coach. She was probably the most homeless looking millionaire you probably ever seen in your life. You know what I mean? She always had, her dirtiest, cleanest shirt was what she was wearing. She didn't, always, I never saw her without, dirt under her fingernails. It's just kind of who she was. But man, the love that she shared us guys, man, it was a phenomenal thing. But that's kind of what I wanted to get into. Like, what is something that people that don't know you would be maybe surprised with? Like me, I still got every card that I ever had, from back then. And, I didn't discriminate against any cards, Coach. I got hockey, football, baseball, wrestling. I got all the cards, and I still got them and everything. And I'm just so proud of her for teaching us that stuff. But what is something for yourself that maybe people wouldn't know you, learn something new about you, Coach?
Yeah, I'm going to answer the question, but before I forget, is she still alive?
No, sir. No, sir. She passed away, and it was one of those things where I was down here, and I didn't get up to go up there to see it, and it's something that I always take near and dear to my heart. That with her being gone, it was one of the saddest moments of my life. Not to be there and to be a part of it. I mean, I'm pretty sure I just would have melted in front of everybody because I didn't even know she was sick. You know what I mean? And it's just like one of the most heart-wrenching things. But I know she would be really proud of me right now.
Amen. And I'm sorry to hear that. As you were saying that, just there's no doubt. I think this phrase, I'm going to use it anyways. I think it's said too often, but it's evident in your eyes, and her legacy lives in on you. Or lives on in you. So I appreciate you sharing that. It's funny as far as the question, people that they wouldn't know about me. I think conversations behind my back, people are like, man, he shares everything. So I don't know if there's a lot that people don't know. I think the most important to me, the most near and dear to my heart, is how much my faith means to me. It drives everything I do. And it's funny because I read about servant leadership 5-6 years ago. I was like, oh, it makes sense. I felt good about it because I was like, that's I believe I'm a servant leader. I believe I've done that even before I learned the term servant leadership. When my father passed away, I was like, as part of that video, I was just so mad at myself because I was like, I should have known about servant leadership from the moment I understood the spoken language, because my father was a servant leader. He was always doing things for the community, always doing things for our church members, always serving my mother. My father had leukemia for about 11 or 14 years before he passed away. And my father, I love him to death. My father was, things were black or white. If you disagreed with him, that's fine, but you're wrong. It was like, I mean, we got into a fight one Christmas, not physical altercation, but he wasn't happy. And I was an adult. I was married, probably 28, 29, 30 at this time. I wasn't filling the ice cube tray the right way. And he grabbed it out of my hand. And man, that was an ugly evening on Christmas Eve or Christmas night. But I look back at it, and with him having leukemia for the last 11, 14 years of his life, my mother has never been an athlete. She's never been active. She's still living. But he, for the last 10 years of his life, did everything for her, from cooking to cleaning to shopping to everything for her. And that could have hardened him, and he could have been more and more rigid. But I saw such a change in him that just became that positive, selfless servant. So I love that. Why I share that story, I don't know. My faith means everything to me. But I guess the one thing people may not know is I have an artistic side to me. I paint murals.
All right.
I've done that for years. I have some up on the wall here, but I've always had a love for art. And the first one I did was friends of ours from church years ago in their nursery. They gave me a few $100. I thought nothing of it. And then someone told someone. I started doing them in businesses and restaurants, and I've done some Monet and some Van Gogh and things that are really challenging, but absolutely love it. So and the thing I love about that is on the football field, I don't feel like I'm a different person. I'm the same person I am in the classroom as I am painting a mural. I'm passionate about it, but I get amped up, probably like you, yelling, screaming, never derogatory. I'm not ever yelling to put someone down. But I think it's pretty awesome that when my players find out that my faith means everything to me, when they see if I post something on Instagram, whatever, about my murals or whatever, they can realize that you can be passionate and excel at multiple things in life if you choose to be. You don't have to be that football coach that treats his wife in a different way, or just, is just a dumb jock Neanderthal type football coach. I think a lot of us, even though we love them, grew up with some of the coaches like that. That's all we knew of them as a football coach. I think it's great to share with our players that for you, hey, this is where I came from. Yeah, this picture that you think I probably photoshopped somewhere, that's where I came from. And this is where I am now, not braggadociously, but this is what you can do if you choose to follow your dream and work your tail off, And I think for me, it's great for players to be like, wait, coach, you teach elementary school? And the first assumption they always have is, oh, you're a PE teacher. I'm like, nope, nothing against PE teachers, but I'm a classroom teacher. I'm as smart as a fourth grader, and that's it. That's as high as I go. And then have them see, that I paint murals. It's not something I think a lot of people that maybe coach against me or don't follow me on social media know about me. But that's my faith is something that drives me, and I'm passionate about art. So it's two things that others may not have known about me.
That's great stuff. I think we all need to do something that's kind of therapeutic to us.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's going through those cards, the workouts. I've done acupuncture before, and it's one of those where you are just forced to not do anything, and it's some good stuff. Let me ask you this, Coach. Do you want to give any shout outs, or what do you got going on now? I know we got your website. Anybody want to go to your website? It's CoachKurtHines.com. Is that correct, Coach?
Yes, sir. Yeah, it's the same. Just like we tell our players, don't have fast cleats 69 or whatever it is. Have your real picture, your real face, your real name. So yeah, on all social media platforms, and my website is Coach Kurt Hines. Anything I have going on, I wrote a book and I finished it this past summer. I have not put it out yet. I haven't put it out yet. So matter of fact, and I'll share this with you. My wife and our oldest daughter Hallie, several years ago, they said, Dad, you can be when someone reaches out to me and says, hey, can you promote my book, or you can come speak at this thing here? They're like, you can get paid for that stuff. And not that I'm like such a bleeding heart, like, oh, I don't want to, but I'm like, yeah, but why? Like if I'm doing a 1-minute selfie video, like why? They're like, listen, even if it's not about the money for you, you can use the money for good to pay bills or to help someone else or do whatever. So just before COVID happened, literally like 6 months before COVID, I got a private message on Twitter from some guy I wasn't following, said, "Hey, coach, we want to fly you out to the Bahamas to have you speak." It was like one of those emails we get that someone from Nigeria wants to put money into your bank account. Just, I almost deleted it, but I was like, yeah, you know what? There's a snowball's chance in hell this might be real. So I replied back and said, "Hey, just reach out to my business account." And
Yeah.
it was legit. ADT Security. They said, "We want to fly you and your wife out here and do that." So about 3 months before that, I hired my daughter to be my social media manager. So if someone asks me to do something, to that involves payment, I'll have her go through it, because I'd rather just say yes and not get my heart, tied into it. She's a lot smarter than me. So when she was reading the emails back and forth, she's like, "That's great, Dad. What do you want to do for a speaking fee?" And I was like, "Hallie, that." And I remember saying to her, like, "Did you read the email?" She's like, "Yeah, I read it several times." I'm like, "They're flying Mom and I out there. They're putting us up in a hotel for a week. They're paying for food and travel." She's like, "Yeah, but what's your speaking fee?" And I was like, "But Hallie, they're paying us to go." She's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but you need a speaking fee also." So it was one of those things where I was able to get paid for it. And I'm sure you've heard of the imposter syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something that's also fairly new to me, as far as like hearing that phrase. I'm not someone that has this story like Inky Johnson. I wasn't ever going to the NFL. I wasn't ever, whatever it is. I grew up blessed, blue collar, middle of the road income. I don't feel guilty for that, but I got arrested a lot, but it was my own stupidity. It was my own foolishness growing up. So sometimes I'm like, man, why am I? Honestly, with this podcast here, I'm like, hey, happy to do it. Thrilled that we've connected. But like,
me too.
but why me? I'm not this guy that has a story. And really, what changed it for me was Wayne Dyer years ago, in one of his books, talked about ego. And I always thought ego was that cocky, arrogant player or coach who just thought they were better than others. And he wrote it in the way, and I'm paraphrasing, but he said ego is anytime you EGO, edge God out. And for me, I was like, damn. I was like, I've been doing that not my whole life, but when people ask me to speak at ADT Security, I remember asking the guy and his boss, we were on a Zoom call, and I said, why me? And as I'm saying, I'm thinking to myself, am I talking myself out of a free trip to the Bahamas, and they said some nice things and why they wanted me. But I honestly felt like, man, I don't have that story. It was through a lot of prayer and a lot of self-reflection, of kind of going full circle, something we talked about earlier. If God put something on my heart, there's going to be someone out there. It might just be one person, but someone that needs to hear that might change their life, or change the way they do things, or how they look at things, or whatever it is. So now when I'm asked to do things, I jump in with both feet and realize that it may not be for everyone, or I know it's not for everyone, but it might be for someone, and might be something that changes them forever. So yeah, I do have a book coming out. We haven't found the right publisher yet. I've kind of turned that over to my daughter, and she's in charge of that. I'm excited about it. And honestly, without no spoiler alert, a lot of people through Twitter be like, "Oh, you should, I want to hear you speak sometime," or "I want to, you should write a book." I was like, what do I have to write about? What do I have? What story? And I truly believe we all have stories we could write about, like you mentioned with your wife, and with her siblings, and living in a car with you, and what you've made out of yourself. What I did, kind of the lazy man's way out, but I think it'll be a good thing, was I ended up going back several years, just taking random tweets that I put out. And it's kind of like a bathroom book, if you will. My attention span is very short. So each page, if you will, is going to be a tweet up top. And then I dive deeper into the story behind the tweet.
Ooh, I like that.
And then what I like, and this is my wife's idea, was we have, I think, called a timeout. And the timeout is just a self-reflecting question at the end. How can you apply this to your life, or whatever it is? So I'm excited for it to come out. I used to jokingly say that I'd make at least 3 sales: my mother, my father, and my wife. My dad passed away, so I'll make at least 2 sales.
Add me, Coach.
There you go.
And I need an auto on that too. I need an auto on that
one. We'll make that happen. I appreciate that. But yeah, no, we'll make that happen. I'll when I'm driving home after this, I'll give my daughter a call and be like, "Hal, we got to get this thing rolling again, and get it published and put it out there."
Yeah, without a doubt, that's why we're doing the podcast here at Totem Pole Nation. This is a championship football coaches clinic podcast. We're doing this stuff because, like I said, unless somebody happens to rub elbows with us and hear these amazing stories, they'll never be documented. You know what I mean? And so, you know, I can't wait for that book. You know, the methodology behind the tweets and everything, man, that's just gold right there. You know what I mean? And that's super exciting stuff. What else do you have going on, Coach? Is there any? Are you speaking anywhere publicly? Are you going to go into any clinics? Maybe speaking this summertime? You got anything lined up for us?
Nothing lined up right now. The funny thing with teaching full time was I had to turn down 3 speaking engagements just around this time right now because it's in the middle of my school, you know, and I could take personal days, but we I teach at a private Christian school, so I'm the head coach at Cornell High School, which is a public school, but I teach about 25 minutes away, and we do this trip with our 4th graders every year where I get on the plane with my 28 4th graders and we fly to Sacramento. Spend the day, get in a bus, go to San Francisco, spend the day, and come back. So it's a whirlwind trip. But one of the speaking engagements, I think it was in Minnesota somewhere, was during that time for that trip that's coming up soon. So nothing lined up right now. But I'm just loving life. You know, I was asked a few days ago on a different podcast, you know, like, what's next for you? Like, what are you excited about? And I said, man, you're gonna hate this answer, but like, I'm just yeah, and that's what it is. I think I remember reading one time, you know, create a life that your dreams are jealous of, and that's what it is. You know, I'm a little bit fatter than I should be. I should have a little bit more money saved, but I'm blessed. I'm living my dream. I'm married to my best friend. We got 4 beautiful kids. We got 2 beautiful grandsons, and I'm doing what I love, making a difference. So life is good.
Amen, Coach. I wish my granddaughter had you as one of her teachers, man. She's in the 4th grade, and she's just a ball of I told her be a sponge. She's like, be a sponge. I was like, soak in all that stuff, and she does. She read The Warrior Kid. She read the 4th one. She read that in 2 days. I was just shocked. I think she's read over 30 books since the new year started, man. She's on a tear. This is what happens when you do bad and your mom takes your cell phone away from you.
Right? That's fantastic.
Yeah, but well, I guess that about wraps things up, Coach. Anything else you want to give a last little shout out, and then I'll go ahead and shout out our sponsors, and we'll go ahead and end this if that's cool with you.
Yeah, absolutely. No, the shout out is just a sincere thank you. I think without getting preachy here, I'll make this 20 seconds or less. I think a lot of people look at social media like, oh, social media is bad. Social media is like a loaded gun. In the right hand, it's going to do some damage. I mean, I do some great things. The wrong hand, some damage. Without social media, we would have connected. We would have never connected. You know, I think it's a blessing to be on this podcast, to be with you guys. So I thank you. I'm excited to continue to grow together and share and just keep doing this thing called life.
Oh, Coach, man, you knocked it out of the park, man. We're all huge fans of you at Totem Pole Nation and everything, and we definitely want to link you up again and have Coach Taylor come in, man. The guy just loves football. He loves leadership. He's such a passionate guy. I'm so glad he reached out to me being down here. You know, he's in Virginia, and we do every morning. We link up and we start at 7 a.m. sharp. We go here on YouTube. We go live on Twitter, and we go live on Facebook and everything. So yeah, we just want to get these stories out because, exactly like you said, if we can help one person, or if one person likes it or comments or something like that, then you know we're making an impact. You know, and who knows, maybe way down the line, my grandkids will be watching this and be like, is that who that crazy pawpaw was, man? He had some good stuff to say, or he sounded like a fun guy and stuff like that, you know.
Absolutely.
That's what we're doing this for, man. You know, it's just it's the testimonies that we got. We're just documenting our history, and you know the message behind it is what I believe is super important. And you know, just believing in something and believing in yourself, and the life lessons that you learn through the game that we love of football. They're bigger than just football. They're going to be things that you know, if you use them the rest of your life, you're going to do pretty good. You're going to be successful, and you're going to make an impact.
Yeah. Well, and that's, man, we can go on forever. This is the last thing I'll say. You know, sports build character. And I've always said sports don't build character unless coaches intentionally coach and model. Don't do much but kind of hurt our bodies. But if coaches go into each practice and each game with the intent of building character, just like we have the intent of installing certain plays and blocking schemes or whatever it is, then we're going to change some lives. So it's a profession that we're blessed to be a part of.
Amen. And just one last little shout out, Rat Coach, check them out online. Rat Coach, let them do all the work. They'll get all you guys jacked up, ready for the season. The off season is where the champions are made. And thanks to everybody here, Football Championship Clinic podcast. And Coach, you are amazing. I really appreciate you, and definitely we'll exchange numbers after this. I want to lock you in. You are definitely a mentor and just amazing guy.
Appreciate you.
All right, to the next episode.